Good job today, man. One at a time, and we'll get the job done. Y'all know what to say. On three. 1, 2, 3.
And the home of the Jets.
Good evening, everybody, on June 16th in New Jersey. And I was excited to talk to Bubs, and I was running through the house before I kicked over my wires and my router. So now I probably have all kinds of router issues. So, Bubs, what's up, man?
Tyson, thanks for having me. It's all part of the experience, I guess. But looking forward to diving into some Jets talk tonight. Looking forward to training camp, about a little over a month out. So should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. It's my pleasure. Dude, you're kicking ass with content. So I'm dying to talk to you. And we have some very important questions here. First one is from Oscar the Grouch. Are you getting a percentage of the profits for this interview?
No.
Not at all. This is all free?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
So how's your channel going? Because you cover everything, though. You don't just cover the Jets. That's a lot of work, man.
Yeah, it's been going good. Yeah, I started up actually a while back, but yeah, recently just been a lot of Jets coverage recently, with the coaching change and stuff like that. And obviously training camp coming up, but there's always something to talk about with this team, always something that, they create something, whether it's mini camp, OTAs. So it's been a lot of fun. And I've also been writing articles over at the Jet Press. So that's been a lot of fun, kind of just being able to talk about them and then also put some of my thoughts on paper, if you will. So it's been good. My goal is to end up going down kind of the sports media route. So it's a good experience. Just hoping, as I always say, to talk about some winning football soon. That's the ultimate goal. Everybody, hopefully that happens here soon. So, but yeah, it's going good.
You're doing it the right way, man, because you got to, consistent content and all kinds of content. You're writing, you're doing streams, you're doing videos. That's the way to do it, man. It's just consistency and then being genuine as well, man. Like, don't regurgitate what everybody else is saying. Say, listen, this is what I think, and this is why, and stay true to yourself, and you'll be fine, man. I love talking to you about Jets, man, because it's like you get the whole different perspective. Because I'm like old and weathered and angry all the time, and you're like the upstart, young, inspiring fan. So now we can kind of meet in the middle and see how it goes. Yeah,
I think we've just seen a lot of bad football, so hopefully Glenn changes that. But yeah, definitely, I think that's what makes the Jets fan base so great. Is there's a good mix. Obviously, fans, been around for a while. Obviously, like you witnessed, the '90s teams. Fans like me who haven't seen that, but are kind of on the up and coming, hoping to see those type of teams. Even obviously some fans from the '80s as well. So it's a great fan base. It's just starving for success. We all deserve it. It's such 100%. A loyal fan base.
So now, if somebody asks you, now it's middle of June.
Yeah.
Are you excited about the upcoming season? Are you actually legitimately excited, or are you more cautious? Like, how are you handling your enthusiasm with this team right now?
Yeah, I would say I'm more cautious. I would say cautiously optimistic would be the best way to describe it. Not fully buying in, not fully just completely down and out. I'm kind of, in the middle. I've said this many times. I think from when Glenn took over in January to where we are now in June, I think he's pressed all the right buttons. I think it's been a good start. And at the end of the day, all that matters is the wins and losses on the field. But right now, we're in June, the Jets can't win or lose, right? We have to wait a couple 100%. Months until we get that. But they're going about it like professionals, right? They're going about it like a normal, well-oiled football operation. Justin Fields isn't riding camels in Egypt like Rodgers this time last year. We don't have any star pass rushers holding out. Everyone's at camp. I think it speaks volume that Sauce and Garrett's there. Even during the voluntary stuff, they do not have to be there. With the contract, I think that shows that they're initially bought into Glenn. It's just been a nice change from what we've had over the last 2 years, which has been so many bombshell reports, so much just outside stuff. This offseason has just been so much more under the radar, and that gives me a lot of confidence that it can be different. where it's just football. That whole country club environment's out of here. It's legitimate accountability, legitimately building a culture from the ground up. It's been a positive start. Now the next big question is, right, training camp, how does that all go? I'm looking forward to training camp. I think it's going to be a pretty physical training camp. And then ultimately, what does this coaching staff look like on Sundays? How is Glenn able to adjust in games? How I think the biggest thing too is like, can he have this team ready to play early in games? That was a big question, big problem under Saleh was they would always get beat out early in games and it would take a second half comeback. So those are the next steps, but cautiously optimistic initially though. Early returns I think have been positive.
I completely agree, man. I'm optimistic because I think the coach, like the culture is slowly but surely changing. Obviously, we can't tell for real until September, but you're seeing a lot of encouraging things from the players actually, buying into the coach, what the coaching staff's talking about hard work, teamwork. It's no nonsense, no drama, no headlines. It's just stay silent, work hard. Actions, not words. And I'm most encouraged when you hear guys that are up for contract that could very easily hold out or be a divider, be the divisive force in the locker room. They're not. Breece, Garrett, Sauce, they're all saying the right things, doing the right things. They're like, we want to be here. We want to learn. We want to be a part of this process. And it seems like all these players have had those one-on-one conversations with Aaron Glenn. Like he talked to Sauce, listen, this is what I want you to do. There's no gray area here. Like, here's your plan for you to make you be the best player you can be. You do that, you'll flourish. If not, we'll see what happens. But it's like, it just seems like there's so much that had to be cleaned out and is being cleaned out. It doesn't guarantee, 12 wins this season, but where the Jets were like, they were dysfunctional. They were a mess. They were complete chaos. It's like, you got to reel it all back in, clean up, and then, rebuild your team. And I like Glenn's approach, dude. I really do. I think there's a lot of really good things. And he talks about like tackling. Like, listen, man, the best way to learn how to tackle is to actually tackle, not, not do air drills and stuff like that. So like, he's kind of old school, but it seems like the players appreciate it. Like they want to be coached hard and they want to succeed. And they want, the more you succeed, the more money you make, the more, more wins you get. And it just seems like the mantra is being bought in by everybody. And to me, as of now, it's encouraging. I love it, dude. I love every aspect of this offseason so far.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm glad you brought up the Breece point too, because when Breece said the other day in his press conference after minicamp, how Glenn called him up after the draft and told him like, look, you're our running back. You're our guy. That to me just shows this is Glenn's show. This is Glenn's team. He's running this thing.
Yep.
And I think that was kind of shown too when they hired him first. I think he's the face of this. Muji still plays a role, but this is Glenn's team, right? Former player. He's got a lot of trying to take a lot of traits from Parcells, which is important, but this is his thing. And just the little things too, like practicing during minicamp and rookie minicamp. Like how many times during Saleh would they not even practice? It would just be some stretching and that was it. I remember even Saleh, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, he canceled the last day of minicamp. Like just the little things like that the Jets are doing, like they're acting like grown-ups, and the tackling is huge. I mean, who would have thought tackling during training camp? That's I mean, it's the small things that I think could go a long way, and getting the young players, because that was one of the biggest questions is I think you're going to get a pretty good gauge on where Garrett and Sauce were out, specifically Garrett, because you thought that maybe he would request a trade based on who the coach was going to be. And if they didn't believe, Garrett could have easily asked out. That has been, the complete opposite. He clearly believes. So that's huge to get that buy-in from those young blue chip pieces that hopefully are here for a long time.
And I what I like is the mindset of all the players is like, I've got to earn my spot in this roster. Breece literally said it. He's like, they don't know who I am. I got to prove to them who I am. Garrett says, listen, I got to be a much better blocker. I got to be a better player to get what I want. And that driven mindset where it's like, listen, this is all about hard work now. We've got to earn our playing time, earn our starting spot, no matter what my name is. And I think that's how you truly change your culture. Again, it's easy to say this now, but you want to see this in training camp. You want to see this during the season when Michael Clemens gets 3 penalties, he's out of the game. Like it's easy to be a hard ass now, but I think you get the feeling where Saleh was like a used car salesman. Aaron Glenn's not. He's not pulling no punches here. If he says, you don't do this shit, you're not going to play, they're not going to play. So I'm hoping that carries, and that's like you said, but that carries from Parcells, that carries from Sean Payton, Dan Campbell, like all these, Pete Carroll, all these hard-nosed coaches all have the same approach. It's carrying on here. I think the players respect it, dude, because they're not playing games. It's not going to be like, well, you make more money than me, but I'm playing better. No, you're going to play. If you earn it, you're playing here. And that's the way it should be.
Yeah, totally. And Fields actually mentioned back in OTAs, there was one practice where Glenn didn't like the way it went. Glenn didn't like the energy, and he told the team after in meetings, like he kind of ripped into him a little bit. And that's what this team needs, right? You need to get rid of that country club environment where anything goes. You mentioned it. How many times would Michael Clemens or even Javon Kinlaw, who's obviously no longer here, but make such boneheaded penalties and not get penalized for it from like a perspective of sitting him down, taking him out? They'd stay out there. I mean, you had Jeff Ulbrich last year say that Hassan Reddick was one of the most unselfish players he's been around. That's how low it got. So it's just, and you look at those other coaches, right? Parcells, Peyton, Dan Campbell, just even Dan Campbell, just specifically one of the up and coming like model coachings right now in the NFL. And Glenn's actually spoke a lot about Campbell, how he's helped him for this moment. Like supposedly there was a couple of times where he had Glenn come up and speak in front of the team, kind of take over a coaching role, sometimes even when he was in Detroit to get him ready. But yeah, it's a breath of fresh air so far from what we've seen and the opposite of what we've seen from the past with Saleh, where it was a used car salesman. It was all the sayings and no actual doing, so.
No, I completely agree, man. It's really encouraging, and Aaron Glenn, like I watch all his press conferences, man, because he gives like really good nuggets. A lot of times he talks more in detail when he talks to the New York Jets staff instead of like the beat. But he talked about how Dan Campbell said, you know what, you set up this training camp practice schedule. You set up things like he put him in positions to actually act like the head coach, like a work in progress. Like you're going to learn along the way. So when you get the job yourself, you can actually do it with his own touch. Of course, it's not going to be, completely the same thing, but and it's interesting to see how he's doing it. And it's like attention to detail. And that's the most important thing where, like the thing about last year with Saleh was like, he took referees out of practice. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, and then when your team's the most penalized team in football, guess why? Because if you make mistakes in practice and they're not corrected, they happen in games. And the other thing, and this is because I talk about this all the time, but I used to go to practice with Parcells. I was there for 2 days. I'd go all week long and watch him. And the one thing about Parcells was it's always about perfection. Run the play right before we move on. Don't run the play, make mistakes. So you know what? 3 hours from now, we're going to cover it in film study. He's like, no. We're going to fix this shit now. And that's Aaron Glenn is the same exact way. Like, no, we're going to make this right the first time. And if not, we're going to fix it. And then we move on as a team. But you got to learn on the field in the moment as it happens. Far too often it's like, it's just too late. Or it's like, it's film study. Okay, coach, no problem. No, let me see you physically do it right. And Parcells would do it with Curtis Martin, Corbett, Keyshawn. He didn't give a shit who it was. Like, I don't care what your name is. You made a mistake. We're going to fix it now. And that's how you raise your standard. And the players all talk about it. We got to play to our standard. And they know what the standard is. They don't have to guess and try to figure it out. Or maybe it's this. No, they know exactly what it is and where they need to be. And if they're not going to be there, they're going to be held accountable. Now, it takes time. You got to clean up a lot of mistakes here. You got to clean up a lot of maybe work ethic issues or just whatever else. But that's how you make progress with a young team.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's also just the whole complacency thing too, where a lot of these players the last couple of years under Saleh, they knew that they weren't going to lose their jobs. They knew that they knew that right, their name, their background, the back of their playing card was just going to get them out there on the field every single Sunday. And bringing up the Parcells stuff, like even down to Joe Tippmann in the Josh Myers Center competition. Right, Tippmann's was a key player. He was a starter on that offensive line last year. Now he's got somebody behind him. Now he's got somebody pushing him a bit here. I think Tippmann will win, but it's just little things like that. No matter how long you've been here, right? This is my team now, and we're going to preach competition. And just, I think it's just training camp really going to be interesting too, from the physicality aspect. Right? The Jets have been such a soft team. And I think that's another Parcells thing too, that he embodies, where you're going to have a lot of these physical training camp practices. You can't, right? No more 2 days, obviously, with the new, and they've got to kind of stay in some of the rules. But I think Glenn's going to stretch it as much as he can, where if they can tackle, and they're going to have these, I think, really, I guess, high intensity practices, which was totally opposite from Saleh, where you'd walk away from a practice and kind of wonder, like, was this football? What was this? Was this
I
golf?
did that many times.
Yeah. He was like, what did I just sat there for 2 hours. They ran the quarterbacks through to receivers with nobody on them, and then they called it a day. It was,
and nobody kicked.
Weird. Yeah. Nobody kicked. Yeah. The kickers just stood around, and they've had all the kicking issues. So
no, it's a change. And it's like, he puts a premium on everything. He values special teams. He values, all these different things. So it's really encouraging. And now going to Justin Fields, the thing I found really interesting right off the bat, he's very, very soft-spoken, very even-keeled, very quiet. He's probably more of a locker room guy with his teammates. He don't care about the media. Is the whole GoPro thing, where he's like, oh, he's wearing GoPros in practice. First of all, he loves it. But the coaching staff, when Tanner Engstrand talked about it, it was fascinating. He's like, now I can see, we could both see what he's thinking, what he's doing, where he's going with everything. So they started out at first a trial period, and it came off so well. Like, we're going to use this all the time now as a teaching tool. And that's something where you're like, all right, they're trying to be innovative in terms of their scheme and their game plan, but and also to make their players better. So that to me was encouraging. And it seemed like Justin Fields, he's a first in, last out kind of guy, all about work ethic, all about his team, wants to be as good as he can be. And to me, it's like that early thing, the development of him was encouraging as well.
Yeah, I was really impressed by the whole GoPro idea. Like you mentioned, it kind of very innovative and ahead of time, not usually, where the Jets typically are, but like that to me was really just impressive and gives you confidence that maybe they could find something. Because as far as I know, I've never seen any other teams actually use the GoPro as far as I know, or at least during minicamp and stuff. Maybe teams have tried it, didn't use it, but yeah, it's an interesting concept. I'm just in general excited to see what Fields looks like with Engstrand, because Engstrand's coming from Detroit, where he had a very good passing quarterback in Goff, and you had a very just air raid offense that also, ran the ball very well. They were all around just a great offense. Now he's coming here in New York with a guy in Fields who could use some improvement from an passing perspective, but now you give him a quarterback with mobility. Goff didn't have mobility. Now you give him, Fields with mobility, and Fields gets a guy who just worked with Goff, who is a pass-first typical pocket quarterback, where you're trying to mold Fields into not just being a mobile quarterback, but now being able to guy that's going to be accurate, can make decisions, get the ball out, because that has been a problem, right? Him holding onto the football. So I think just them two working together, I think mixes well from Engstrand's background and where he comes from to Fields' background, his strengths and some of his weaknesses. Hopefully Engstrand can, because I know they asked Engstrand a couple weeks ago about the difference with working with Goff as opposed to Fields. And he's basically like, well, now I have a quarterback that has legs now, right? And can move. And that's just another added weapon. I'm excited to see what Fields can do. I am. It's a low risk, high reward move. At worst, he's the bridge and you draft somebody next year. But the mobility and then adding on, hopefully, more to his arm, more to his accuracy, more to his decision making, and developing him that way. And hopefully the GoPro and just the film stuff, he can kind of get that into his head and understand, become a little bit smarter and take another step.
And I think the Jets are doing an excellent job of fully supporting him, like trying to give him the offensive line, trying to give him playmakers, working hand in hand, saying, like, when Aaron Glenn is you talked about this before, Aaron Glenn is very hands-on. His fingerprints are all over his team. He's involved in the offense. He's involved in the huddle. He's involved in the quarterback. Like, he is literally everywhere watching everything, but he's very close to Justin Fields too. And it's like they're a team. He's not like on an island, like, all right, Tanner, you and Justin go down there. You guys go figure it out. Come back. Let me know how it goes.
Yeah.
They're all working on this together, and it's like you get the feeling that they're going to try to work to his strengths and not force anything. I think far too many times offensive coordinators get too cute. Like, listen, this is my offense. You got to fit in and do the best you can. They're kind of catering it. Listen, we saw what you did at Ohio State. We saw you develop. He's getting better every year. Got better last year in Pittsburgh. Let's try to accentuate that and move on. And at the same time, like, to me, how do we say this nicely? Like, the OTA reports were cool and the minicamp reports were cool, but it's like, oh, he's holding on to the ball too long. He's been here a few months. Yeah. Like, he's learning a new coach, a new coordinator, a new offense, new teammates. Yeah. If this is happening in October, all right. But now it's like, everybody wants to pounce on him so bad to already find holes in his game where he's literally just trying to figure all this out. Learn the play calls, communicate them to his team in a timely manner. Like, it's like, it's truly a work in progress. Yeah. But you like the early signs. You want to believe in him. If you hit it big with him, you have your quarterback for the next decade, which is good. Yeah. But he does have, abilities that are rare. Like you saw, his speed, his arm strength. And that's what some of the defensive players have said. Like, we're surprised how fast this guy is for his size, which is great. So I'm encouraged by him a lot. It's a work in progress. The other thing too, which is good to me personally, is having Tyrod Taylor here. I think that's a huge asset for him, because guess what? Tyrod can run too. So they can work. He could teach him things and learn. Like, nobody really talks about that, where it's like, oh, who's the quarterback coach? Who's that? You have Tyrod Taylor, who's an excellent teammate, could have been a team captain last year or whatever. Like, he's that kind of personality who can help, pinpoint things. Hey, listen, man, kind of work on this, fix that. So that's a positive too for this team.
Yeah, definitely. I think Tyrod's kind of gotten lost in the mix a little bit, lost in the shuffle. I think a lot of people just forgot about him. Like, he was in the conversation to maybe become starter if they were just going to stick with him. And then they signed Fields and everybody just stop talking about it. But yeah, I think what makes Tyrod so important for Fields, like you mentioned, kind of similar quarterback, and he's gone throughout his whole career like that. He's able to use his legs as well. Fields able to use his legs as well. You hope both Tyrod and Engstrom can drop a little bit of, the knowledge and the experience on him to become the better passer. And I would just say too with Tyrod, just another leader in this locker room, right?
Bro.
Like last year, he got, I believe, team MVP or team. Yeah, I think it was it team
votes.
MVP or maybe no, it was captain votes. Yeah, captain votes, like you mentioned. And he's a backup quarterback. That doesn't always happen. I think that just shows you the type of leader he was and is, and he's been around. And guys like Tyrod don't stick around unless if they're not good leaders. He's obviously stuck around in the NFL because he's a good leader. He's a good mentor to some of these quarterbacks that he's been around. And yeah, the field stuff, it's May and June. You can't react to, right? People are, oh no, Fields took a what would be sack in a game. You look at the day, it's May 26th. You can't panic. To the flip side, though, if you want to look at the positives, him and Garrett Wilson did have a good connection going, especially during minicamp. Yep. You hope that's something that, right? You go back to the Ohio State days, you turn on the film, him and Garrett were dominant over there. That's a connection that you hope can, in a perfect world, that's your connection for the very long time. If you work out an extension with Garrett and Fields pans out. But yeah, I mean, can't overreact to anything here in June. I think, right, it's a process, and he's learning a completely new system, new environment as well. It's not like it's a new coach coming in. It's a brand new team. And Fields knows too, like this is it for him. This is his last shot at starting. So this is it. And for the Jets, you hope you find something in him. If not, right, you're taking somebody next year, but I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. It was the right move, in my opinion, to go with him and move on from Rodgers.
No, I completely agree. I could not agree more with that. It's just a whole new, it's a youth movement. It's an energy movement. It's a leadership movement. Everything's changed now. You can make your argument. This is probably the best offensive line Justin Fields is playing behind, right? And it's exciting because if things work out, you have two great athletes in Olu and Membu, which is your bookend tackles, can be for the next God knows how many years, which is great. You mentioned the Tipman competition with Myers. John Simpson's a mauler, AVT. So you have a line that is a lot of potential there. To me, it's like the one caveat with this whole team is the way Aaron Glenn's approaching this is putting a premium on coaching. Mm-hmm. Like this coaching's got to be on point. If it is, it could be really interesting. If they're kind of like, if they're weak in some areas with a young impressionable team or all these things, it could get exposed early. But the offensive line's interesting, man. This could be, they obviously want to run first. They have three good running backs. But if Membu and these guys can get coached up well and get in sync and have, I think one of the Jets' biggest issues over the last couple of years is having all five starters playing at the same time in training camp and in preseason, like literally all playing together, not piecing in somebody. Who the hell was it? Who was the Dwayne Brown? Like, all right, week one's here, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that having these guys all healthy and practicing together and staying together the entire training camp could pay big dividends too.
Yeah, the good old Dwayne Brown last week of training camp, sign him and he's throw him out there in week one and get Rodgers killed. Yep. Yeah, that was an experience. But yeah, I mean, it's like you mentioned, it's good to get all five guys and know all five guys that are going to be starting week one, have them in training camp, have them out there in the, off season. So, with the mini camp and OTAs and of course the regular season. And this group in general has experience too from last year. The only new piece you're really adding is Membu. Olu, right, played towards the end of last year, then got hurt, but did have some experience with this group. Yeah, I mean, this is easily their best offensive line they've had on paper, should be in a decade. I mean, I know you look back at those 2009, 2010 teams and hope maybe you can even get closer to that level as well. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be huge. Running the ball from a Fields perspective, 100% is the best offensive line that he's played with. And I just think in general, it's so huge for this Jets team to dominate the trenches. Like, I think that's the whole Glenn mantra as well of being physical, being competitive, right? Even if you get knocked down, you're going to get back up, throw a couple punches on the way up and continue to go after. Like, the way you do that is dominating on the defensive line, dominating on the offensive line, running the ball down your throat. You have a quarterback that can run. You have three good running backs. You have an absolute mauler in Braylon Allen, a massive running back who can run through anybody. And I'm excited just to see how they spread out the running back share, because you look at the way they did it in Detroit with Montgomery and Gibbs. You hope you can get something similar out of Breece and Braylon with that type of duo. But yeah, it's all about winning in the trenches and being physical, being nasty. I know Glenn talked about it, Membu, right? Being, have that nasty presence, that physicality. That's just, this team's lost. Like, they've gotten pushed around. They've gotten knocked over and just beat. Like, you can't have that. And if you want to win in this league, look at all those teams in the AFC North, how they get it done. It's that nasty, physical, in the trenches football. Finally, it feels like the Jets are getting there with the offensive line, and that's huge on multiple ends, not just offense, but just the entire team. Having those guys up front is a big deal in terms of changing the way that this team plays and looks.
It's a mindset and a philosophy, man. And you that's so well said. You're killing it, because you're absolutely right. And like, whenever the Jets would play a team like Baltimore, Pittsburgh, it felt like the more physical teams, they got pushed around. And they you can see towards the third quarter, fourth quarter, they started like wavering. They never set the tone themselves. They didn't have that nasty mindset. Like, listen, we're going to beat your ass now. We're not going to push around anymore. You may be better than us. We're going to outwork you. Like that mindset, especially over the last couple of years, completely went away, where it wasn't a team you were proud of. Like effort, you question passion for the game, you question all of that. And it seems like they're trying to make that return. And football is won in the trenches. That's no secret. We all know it, but they weren't doing it. The defensive line was getting pushed around, couldn't stop the run. Offensive line couldn't run the ball, which pisses you off. So now what's most fascinating to me is how they use Breece Hall, who, interestingly enough, we talked about this all last year. Like, Breece has got to be hurt. He's got to be hurt because he's dropping passes. He looks a step slower, this and that. And he mentioned in his interview, there's probably times he should have taken himself out and not played, because he was kind of like, but he wanted to be there for his teammates, because now he's in a contract year. And we've seen, before he was hurt and healthy, we saw great things. Then we saw a lot of things where, like, you know what, you're just a guy now. Like, we wanted to see Braylon Allen play more. We saw better things from everybody else but Breece. But now he seems like he's healthy. He's obviously motivated because he's got a lot to prove to everybody, especially when he wants to make a contract. But how does Engstrand handle that? Like, how do they handle the reps? Do they give him, you go by the Detroit mindset, he gets 15 carries a game, but he may be the pass catcher on third downs. I'm curious to see how they handle the running backs and how Breece handles it, because say after 3 or 4 weeks of the season, he's only getting 10 carries a game. You're not getting big money off of that. So does he stay this team guy throughout the process if he's not getting the numbers he wants, how they handle it, and how Aaron Glenn handles it himself as a head coach?
Yeah, it's interesting to the whole Breece Hall thing. I think last year was difficult for him just on so many levels. Like, the production wasn't there. Then you had the injury, obviously the losing. He hasn't quite gone back to the player he was his rookie year. I would say, like, that rookie year, there was just something about him. I mean, the year after he had a good year, actually. But last year, it was ugly. I still think, though, with Breece, I just think coaching is so important with him. And I have high expectations for him this year. I really do. I think when you look at just from a passing game perspective, I expect him to have more involved, like crazy more than we've seen in the last couple years. I think you could see a world where it's Garrett and then Breece and then a Mason Taylor and a Josh Reynolds. Just looking at the way they did it in Detroit with Gibbs being obviously a threat, as you mentioned, as a pass catcher out of the backfield. But I'm expecting big things for Breece. I am. And I think he's going to be, I still think he'll be that every down, that number one back, that do-it-all guy. I think you give him better coaching. You give him a coaching staff that has that run-first mindset. I mean, you even just look, even if Breece was healthy down the stretch last year, how much would they have actually ran it? I mean, it turned into an Aaron Rodgers, let me try and get my 500th touchdown to Devontae Adams show, where he was throwing it 40 times a game and they were losing 16-9 to the Colts. Like, that's what it turned into, or the Rams. I think that was actually that game. But either way, it's that this team's going to run the ball a ton. They should be top 10, top 5, hopefully in carries. I mean, you look at Gibbs last year, he had 250 carries, which was tied for 11th. And then he had 46.8% of the team's carries. I think you could look for something like that and over 1,000 yards. And then ideally, maybe out of the backfield from a pass catching perspective, if you can get up to 1,400, 1,300 all-purpose yards, maybe somewhere around that.
It's realistic.
You could be looking at. I'm excited for Breece. I am. I think with that run-first mindset, he's going to get the ball a ton behind this offensive line. Fields as well. Like, I think Fields is going to benefit him as well, because it's going to be a little unpredictable. You can run a lot of those read options. Like we see a lot in Baltimore. I think the Jets can throw some of that in there as well, where you run those read options. Fields can take it sometimes. Breece could take it sometimes, keep the defense honest. I think that's another thing too. Like, just the Jets run concepts over the last couple of years have been so vanilla and so boring. It's run up the middle, run like there's no real substance to them. Stack the box, teams could expect it. You can have a little bit more of those non-vanilla run concepts, get them outside, get them inside as well. And as a pass catcher, utilize him a ton, and Braylon be that short yards third down back, because they did not use Braylon nearly enough last year, especially in the short yardage situations. Something about the Jets when it's 3rd and 1, I don't know what it is. They
always lost
it.
yards.
Yeah. 3rd and 1, they overthink it. 3rd and 1, just give it to Braylon. 3rd and 2, give it to Braylon. Breece be your all around other back as well. So
no, I'm excited for him. No, I mean, the offensive line is a big part of that with Breece.
Yeah.
I think, and Tanner Engstrand's already ahead of the curve because he knows Breece can catch the ball out of the backfield. It took Hackett, 10 games to figure out that Breece is actually a pass catcher.
Yeah,
Engstrand already knows that, which is a good thing. So now I'm encouraged by the offensive line. Justin Fields, I think, can do enough to keep the Jets competitive. Running backs, love it. But now here comes my questions for you, because here's my concerns. We look at pass catchers and playmakers in the passing game where Garrett Wilson, they're actually feeding him the ball. They're saying, listen, we're going to get you the ball a lot. You're going to flourish. We're going to call plays for you and make you the asset that we know you can be. Great. After him, it gets interesting at wide receiver where it's a lot of unknowns. Malachi Corley, who did absolutely nothing last year, disappointment, is hurt this year. He's missing all kinds of valuable reps in practice, which is annoying. And then even Engstrand said he's got to catch up. He's got to find out ways to catch up, because we're not going to sit and wait for him. Learn the playbook, figure it out, do your mental reps, and catch up. So Corley's an unknown. Gibson, I think we kind of know what he is, like that speedster guy, maybe a gadget guy. Not like he's a okay receiver. Alan Lazard, I wouldn't be surprised if he's traded to the Steelers or whatever, but I think what he is. He's a 2 or 3 good run blocker. It's that. You don't really, Josh Reynolds is a guy everybody loves now because he has familiarity, but the wide receiver group is one that I was hoping they added somebody else. I was hoping they signed a different free agent, a little more talent, but they're going this route, I guess, kind of with some risk and maybe with an eye towards training camp, where if they don't like what they see, they can go out and trade somebody or sign somebody at their cuts. But the wide receiver group makes me a little bit uneasy because I think they're just lacking that legitimate number 2 guy. Like you mentioned, it could be Breece Hall, your number 2 receiver. It could be Mason Taylor. But in terms of wide receivers, not exactly where I think they need to be right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I know you mentioned earlier about them relying heavily on this coaching staff to be competent and be a very good coaching staff. I think the receiver spot kind of shows that. I think they believe that this coaching staff is going to be able to get more out of these guys. But I agree. Receiver is a very questionable spot. And I think part of it is, like I mentioned earlier, they're going to use Breece a ton, right? Hopefully 500, 600 receiving yards potentially out of him, as we just talked about. And then Mason Taylor, then they're going to use him a lot. I think the Jets kind of view this as Garrett, Breece, Taylor, and then your wide receiver 2 will probably be your 4th most targeted, let's say, wide or pass catcher. That might be how they want to run things, but it's still very questionable. Malachi Corley, to me, is I don't think there's a chance he even makes this roster. This is a guy that needed to have almost a perfect offseason training camp, and he wasn't even out there. He was hurt. I don't even really know. We didn't even really hear anything about what the injury was.
Nope.
And he was just so bad last year. He barely even played. He's going to have a heck of a training camp to make this team. And even if he makes this team, what kind of role does he even play? Like, is he even out there, or is he is he a healthy scratch? Like, what is he? You mentioned Gibson, feels like a gadget guy, not even probably a punt kick returner anymore, though. Like that's kind of out the window. So you question his role as well, just on the roster. Lazard, I think Lazard will get dealt to Pittsburgh. If I had to guess, I think it'll probably be one of those end of training camp, give Rodgers one of his friends over there. But Reynolds, Reynolds will be probably the wide receiver number 2. It seems like where it's headed. Knows the system, was in Detroit those 2 years, 2022, 2023, after getting, signed or getting brought in midway through the 2021 season. I like Reynolds. I think he's solid, but yeah, outside of that, I mean, what is you going to get out of Tyler Johnson? He hasn't done a whole lot. Arian Smith, I didn't like that pick. He's a burner, but he does not do anything well outside of that. Like, he can't really catch. His route running's not great. He struggles against physical corners, which you're going to face a lot of physical corners in the NFL that, the press coverage. Yeah, I have some concerns. I would have brought in another veteran, and I still wouldn't be opposed to bringing another veteran. That's just not kind of who the Jets are going after right now. Like, it's all youth movement. And I think they hope that Arian Smith, they get something out of him. I think they're hoping that they can turn Tyler Johnson into something. Still will be 27, even though he's been in the league for a couple years, still south of 30.
What I've always learned in football is hope is not a good plan.
Yeah.
I think we've learned that.
Exactly.
And so then it's like, and you're one Garrett Wilson injury away from being in deep
100%.
trouble. And that's where I agree with everything you're saying. I agree with. And if you're putting a premium on coaching, Arian Smith, he's a rookie that has a long way to go. He loves his work ethic, and Aaron Glenn truly believes in him. They had a hands-on approach, which is great, but he's still a rookie receiver. So you have a lot of unknowns, and your two knowns are Lazard and Reynolds, which is fine. But it's like so in my optimistic mind, because it's June, we got to be optimistic in June, is that the Jets used OTAs and minicamp to assess exactly what they have. Okay, listen, now we have an idea what they have. There's still no pads on, but we can kind of get a feel of what their work ethic is. How do they watch film? Do they fit in this offense? Do they not? And then as training camp comes or any cuts happen, maybe they can tinker then and make some moves to help address their offense. Because, like I said, I don't feel comfortable with it. Then you go to the tight end position, which everybody loves Mason Taylor. I get it. I do too. I think he's a great pick. The tight end position as a whole is a concern for me because there's not really a guy like you have Stone Smart, Jeremy Ruckert. You're like, oh, okay. Like it's like putting a premium on coaching. Can you get, everybody wants to point at those couple games. Stone Smart looked great. Okay. They've never done it before. Other than that, it's like, there's not like a big resume of, okay, he's a 50 catch guy, 60 catch guy that you can count on. So between the wide receiver group being mediocre, I guess you could say, or just average, the tight end group you're hoping has potential, like Rucker can finally catch on and do something more than did last year. But again, it's like those two areas of pass catchers is just makes you uncomfortable, man.
Yeah, it does. I would have loved to seen even just like a Josh Palmer, right? Somebody like that, let's say, and then also bring in Reynolds. And if you told me it was Garrett, Reynolds, somebody like a Palmer, just it doesn't have to be Palmer, but somebody like that. And then you say, okay, you've got Garrett, who is your star, and you've got two bona fide proven pass catchers behind him. Then I'd be like, okay, because at this point, I wouldn't even consider Lazard a proven, he's been so bad here. The drops are just out of hand. And maybe, who knows, maybe with the coaching staff, if he does stay here, maybe with the coaching staff and that more, that firmer coaching on him, maybe he changes where he's a little bit more focused and doesn't have those drops, but that's just who he is. That's who he's been. Yeah. I mean, you're one, like you mentioned, Garrett Wilson injury away from being down to slim pickings. And then tight end wise, Stone Smart's got a long way to go. He can't, like you said, I made a couple plays, got some athleticism, good receiving upside, but he's got a long way to go. Ruckert, it seems like Glenn's talked about Ruckert a little bit. Seems like really feels that he's got more from a receiving perspective. So feels like a guy that Glenn likes, and hopefully they can get more out of. This is a big year for Ruckert. I mean, to make a break. At some point, 100%. You've got to be a little bit more productive than you have been. I mean, he's been pretty much a non-factor. So
yeah, you can very easily, you can make a case where the Jets can score some points and be explosive. And you can make a case where they can struggle because they don't play make. It just comes down to do the players rise to the occasion? How good is the coaching? Or does it, kind of guys fall apart, kind of fall to the wayside? And then it comes up to Muji and Glenn to make a decision. Say, okay, listen, we've got to change this because we don't have enough on offense to score points on a weekly basis, enough to win games. Yeah. Again, you want to run the ball, play good defense, but at some point you need playmakers. So offense is interesting. Defense gets really interesting because you have Steve Wilkes, who, respected head coach, Aaron, former head coach, Aaron Glenn, defensive guy. And you have a lot of talent, like Pro Bowl talent, like high caliber talent. But then you also have some holes too, like some unknowns. So the defense is interesting, where I think a lot of us have more faith because of just the background of the coaching staff and the players. But to me, it starts on the defensive line, where everybody loves Quinnen Williams. We all love Jermaine Johnson, but he's going to be ready for week one. To me, you can't say, okay, you're ready for week one, be the old Jermaine and create havoc week in and week out for the next 17 weeks, 18 weeks. You're going to have to bring him in slowly and get him acclimated. Okay, who's behind him? Who's behind, who's your next pass rusher behind Jermaine Johnson that caused that? Will McDonald, put on some weight, emerging young player. But to me, it's like, if you're looking at the pass rush in general, they have some work to do there, man, in terms of generating it without having to sell your soul with a blitz.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think they'll blitz more, like you mentioned just there. But yeah, you can't blitz all the time. You've got to also be able to just generate with just four guys. Jermaine's interesting. I think it'll probably take him a couple weeks. So you have to think that Jermaine's at least the first, let's say, month will be a little slow, let's say, out of the gate.
Yep.
And then who's going to step up behind him? You really haven't heard much from like an Eric Watts, a Brady McGregor. They haven't made a ton
Weaver,
of
I
noise.
think, is the guy so far.
Yeah, Weaver has. You even have Tyler Barron, who they drafted out of Miami as someone to look for potentially stepping up. This group whole and healthy, definitely a lot of optimism, right? Quinnen, Jermaine, Will McDonald put on some size. Hopefully that size can help them improve against the run, which I think just in general is huge for this defense. And I'm excited to see what McDonald can do. I think another thing is who the defensive tackle is going to be next to Quinnen, because we went into the offseason, that was a huge need. And not that they didn't address it, but they kind of, I don't know, addressed it very they addressed it with a couple low signings and it didn't draft anybody, basically bargaining in a way.
Yep.
Added Derek Nottie, added Byron Cohart. Cohart actually seems to be the front runner right now. He had a pretty good mini camp, had a good OTAs, seems to be the front runner right now for that, defensive tackle 2 spot, which Cowart's interesting because he was with Chicago last year, who Eric Washington, the defensive line coach, was also there. So he does have that connection, potentially gives him the inside edge. Leonard Taylor may be a guy that can step up, although you haven't heard much from him. I'm really intrigued. That defensive tackle 2 spot next to Quinnen's huge, especially when it comes to stopping the run. I mean, this team cannot continue to gash by the run. You hear all the common phrases of gap integrity and all those things like that. They've got to be better with that. They've got to be better consistently getting home to the quarterback as well. Last year, I took a step back. So, it's Will McDonald, Quinnen, and a healthy Jermaine excites you, but the guys behind that, the depth-wise, there's still some things that need to be ironed out. The 3 UDFAs last year, are any of them going to take a step up? Any of these free agent signings going to play a big role or be a nice surprise? A Noddy, even they added Jay Tefele as well.
Yeah,
a Coward, a Rashad Weaver. So, it's I'm thinking they should be improved, but still some questions from where this group was and now where it is now.
And the thing is, Aaron Glenn's been really outspoken saying, we've got to stop the run. We're putting a premium on stopping the run. He knows it's important to him. So I'm like, maybe he's just smarter than us. We have the tools here to stop the run. You guys haven't seen it. Maybe a lot of guys last year weren't coached well and they underperformed the scheme. They weren't, bad communication, whatever it is. There could be a lot of things behind the scenes that we don't know. But if they can't stop the run, all bets are off at that point. Then it's going to be a complete disaster. So you wonder about that. Then you look at the linebacker position where I've been so impressed with Jamie Sherwood, man, how he's speaking about his team. Obviously, they re-signed him, but emerging as a captain, CJ Mosley helping everybody out, still staying in touch. But Sherwood is truly embracing every aspect of being a leader, being a good teammate, helping everybody learn the defense, all that. Obviously, he's got sideline to sideline speed. He's a player on the rise. He's definitely, emerging as one of the better linebackers in football. Mm-hmm. He's been impressive. Then you have Quincy Williams, where he's, in a contract year, he's embracing it. All right, you know what? They Aaron Glenn kind of said, you're one of our leaders, man. We need you to take your pride, your passion, your energy, and bring it into the locker room. And he's embracing. So the Jets linebacker group could be really interesting because they have that speed that they've lacked for a long time. That's something where they hadn't had that sideline to sideline speed. The pursuit was always a problem too, but Sherwood's been interesting, the way he's handled this offseason.
Yeah, I've been really impressed too by Sherwood, just like you mentioned, the leadership role, saying all the right things. And I think that's a big reason why Glenn and them brought him back. Not only does he what he does on the field, but they didn't draft Sherwood, but I also just think his stuff off the field that he brings, that leadership qualities and all those things like that is another reason that made Muji and Glenn so impressed with him. Yeah, I'm excited for Sherwood and Quincy. And I also just think too, you mentioned CJ Mosley. I mean, another reason too that he was just such a good Jet while he was here is kind of being that leader and being that mentor for both Quincy and Sherwood. Yeah. And a big reason why both those players are who they are today is because of Mosley, leading the way the last couple of years, like you mentioned, still staying in touch. I mean, Sherwood, he had such a huge year last year. I think probably put it on repeat, very similar to what he did last year, I'd assume. And I think what was so impressed about Sherwood last year is he had to step in. This wasn't a starter from day one. Mosley went down. He had to step in during the season and took over that leadership role, that defensive play caller, I believe, actually took that over as well. And yeah, the speed, the sideline to sideline speed, that's a big deal. Quincy as well, I'll say, another name that I think is buying into this coaching staff. He could be, he sees Sherwood get a new contract. He could easily be, where's my money? Where's my deal? Right. He could get an extension. But he's there. He's showing up. I think that's another positive sign for Glenn and Muji. But yeah, I mean, 2 young linebackers, 2 guys with speed, 2 guys that kind of embody, it feels like what Glenn and this defensive staff want. It's exciting. And then, you've got your Francisco Maui-Noa, who they drafted out of Miami, as kind of your Kiko Maui-Noa, rather, as your depth guy. But yeah, I mean, Sherwood and Quincy leading the way in the middle is exciting.
And the way Glenn talked about Quincy and the way Quincy's talked about his conversation with Glenn, it seems like they said, listen, man, we have a role for you in this defense. We know exactly what you want to do. Put in the hard work, be the guy that we think you could be. And you kind of get the feeling he's going to be back. Like, he's the kind of guy, like, you know what? Do the right thing for now. We'll take care of you. That's basically like kind of reading the tea leaves of that. That's kind of what I think, at least. Sherwood got paid. Now, going to the secondary, it gets really interesting because the cornerback position, you have guys that you love. You love Sauce. You love Mike Carter second. Sauce is saying all the right things, and you got to expect a much better year out of him this year with on playing for the contract, just whatever criticisms he's received over the last year, better coaching, better defense. Michael Carter second could probably have a real huge role in this defense because he's a very versatile piece that was unfortunately hurt last year. The other cornerbacks, it could be Brandon Stevens. It could be A.Z. Thomas. But it seems like it's going to be a very physical, aggressive secondary where these corners are going to have a chance to make plays.
Yeah, it's Stevens is interesting because he was one of those controversial free agent signings. But it feels like this coaching staff is a legitimate plan for him. Wilkes talked about him a couple weeks ago about even just hitting the jugs machine and things like that. Like, it feels like they really believe in him getting back to his pre-2024 form for this team. I'll be honest, the A.Z. Thomas pick at first, I wanted playmaker in that spot. But the more and more you read into him, the more and more and again, you can't take too much stock, but the more and more you look at minicamp and OTAs, I thought he had a pretty strong minicamp and OTAs, at least from what all the reports were saying. He's a guy that I'm really looking forward to seeing, like that physical press corner, man coverage, which obviously Glenn likes. Like, that type of player just fits what this defense is and what this defense needs. And I think there's a real shot that, let's say Stevens does have struggles this year, that A.Z. Thomas can step in or will step in and be that number 2 next to Sauce. And from the Michael Carter perspective as well, he talked about it the other day, that back injury really hindered him last year. He said that February, I think it was, until he wasn't fully feeling healthy. Got the new contract, excellent nickel. You've got your all-pro Sauce going to get the extension. You got one of the better nickels when he's healthy in the NFL, Michael Carter. And then you've got a guy in Stevens who still young, right coaching, can get back on track. And then you have a guy in A.Z. Thomas who, very young. I know it's obvious since he got drafted, but he's only 20. I mean, he'll be 21 in July. So even just for a draft prospect, very young.
Yeah.
And then, safety wise, sure we'll get into that as well. You added another young room as well. A lot of young prime, like players in their prime, young players, and in that secondary. And I expect a bounce back year for Sauce too. Michael Carter, right, healthy. Expect him to have a good year. And Stevens is the biggest question.
And what I like too is all the corners and all the guys in secondary all talk about like the coaches being former players, getting them on all the hands-on coaching from experience. Like, listen, we've been there, done that already. Dre Bly, Aaron Glenn, like they, and it seems like, and that's been said a lot about a lot of players on the a lot of coaches on the staff. Where like, listen, a lot of these guys are former players. Like, they've actually played the game, so they're speaking like, I used to do this, and that seems like it's paying dividends as well. So the corners, I have faith in, where you think they're going to be physical and be nasty. They have a blueprint for them where you can see they can flourish. The safety position seems to be an unknown where you don't really know what you have. Like Tony Adams talked about, I used to be the hunter, now I'm the hunted. You have Cisco, you have Malachi Moore, you have all these guys. And I'm curious to see how that plays out because it could be an open competition there. I think Cisco's probably locked, but after that, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that because, again, they want physical guys, they want guys with range, and they want ball hawks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you mentioned Tony Adams. That's the big question mark, right? Cisco, young player, actually, grew up a Jet fan, grew up in the area, all that stuff. Cool story. He slots in. Tony Adams, though, is the question mark. And obviously got benched last year, during the season. And I really like Malachi Moore out of Alabama. I think just some of the leadership traits that he already possessed during Bama. I mean, he was a 3-year captain, I think, over there, and just played a very competitive, nasty style football. Right, we've talked about that a lot. Kind of fits similar to what Glenn would want. I think there's a very real chance that Malachi Moore starts at some point this year over Tony Adams, and you're looking at Cisco and Malachi Moore as your safety tandem. And the biggest thing for that group, and really just in general, is the tackling. I feel like the safeties the last couple of years, the tackling has been just a huge issue. I mean, so many big plays, and you hope Cisco can shore that up. Moore can shore that up. Just the entire defense as a whole that can shore that up. But I think that's what makes the safety and the secondary some question and maybe a little bit of concern, but also what makes the safety room so exciting or more exciting is they're all young. And with this coaching staff and, in this scheme, you hope that they could take the next step, reach another level. And I'm glad you brought up the former players, coaches, because I think that's so huge, even just down to obviously the on the field stuff as well, but even just down to like the accountability stuff. These coaches kind of know when the right time is to get on the players because they were in the players' shoes. And then from a player's perspective, you can trust these coaches a lot more. You can really, I would say, listen to these coaches significantly more because that they've been in your shoes before, right? College level, NFL level. And I think that's important. I'm not saying not all players make great coaches, but there is something about a coach being in a player's shoe, knowing, what it's like, and then a player knowing that a coach was once in his shoes and understanding what it's like, especially for some of these young guys. All these coaches were rookies at one point. They all were learning. And I think that's important to just them believing, them getting better as players, them working with them on the field, off the field. I think that's an important note as well.
No, 100%. Like the defense can be really interesting, man. Like there's some all pro talent there. You have your Quinnen, your Quincy, you have Sauce, you have some, guys that can play at a high level. And then you have a lot of unknowns. Who the hell are their safeties? Like, who's like, so it's going to be interesting to see how Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilkes handles that. I think of the whole team, you had the most confidence there where, like, listen, based on the coaching staff's background, they should have a good feel and they should hopefully stop the run and be a physical, nasty defense that'll keep you in games. It's up to everybody else to score points. Special teams is interesting because we don't know, it's like punting competition, punt return competition, kicker. Like there is a lot of competition on special teams and a first-time coordinator. So, but Banjo is interesting, man. I love listening to him talk because he has tremendous energy and he played it. Like we talked about it. He actually played special teams. He was very good at it. Yeah. And they all learned from Westhoff, who's one of the best in the game. So he brings a lot of the principles with them there. So special teams, they put a premium on it. It's important to them. But there is a lot of competition, man. A lot of unknowns there. Even Aaron Smith returning kicks. Yeah.
The kick return is going to be interesting. You got, Aaron Smith was returning kicks. I know Banjo mentioned that. And then even Kene Nwango, I think is how you pronounce his last name, who had the Seattle kick return last year. And even Isaiah Davis, I guess you could throw in that mix as well as maybe somebody. They brought in Chris Boyd, who is like a special teams ace. There's some questions, but they got a lot. It's funny. They got a lot younger too at special teams. Like they moved on from Zerline over 30. They moved on from Morstead over 30 and then got, UDFA and Kai Kroger and Austin McNamara, who was 1 year in the league. He was on the Bengals practice squad, then got released. Carlson still young. Caden Davis, a UDFA. So training camp, we definitely will be seeing a lot of kicking. We won't just be seeing the kickers and punters standing around, but special teams is a key area because it was so bad last year. And I feel like special teams, it's kind of one of those things where you don't know how good you have it until essentially you don't have it anymore. It's so bad. Like it's, so it's just these kickers too. They're so iffy. It's just like a reliever in baseball. Once they lose it, they just don't have it anymore, and that was the big issue last year with Zerline and the whole cast of characters that they had a kicker. If I had to predict, I think Carlson will probably be the kicker. If I had to guess, and then McNamara, Kroger, McNamara, I guess. I don't,
But this
we'll
goes
see,
this
but
goes back to our point earlier though, where they're putting a premium on coaching.
competition. Yeah.
Like
And coaching,
competition and coaching, like where it's like, listen, you got a lot of unknowns where everybody's like, oh,
Mhm.
more stat, you guys are idiots. What are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Like they're going with the unknowns over the knowns based on their expertise and their fit for the team, which is great, but there's risk there. If you start shanking kicks week one, we're like, what the hell is going on here? Like this is our plan, this is our plan A when you had a competent plan B. So again, training camp is you learn a lot of things. And I'm most interested to see how they adjust. And Aaron Glenn keeps talking about, like, we haven't faced adversity yet. No major injuries, no major this, no major that. Once that happens, how do they pivot? If they have, say the kicker start out and they look terrible once the pads come on or whatever, do they make that cutthroat decision? Like, we got to move on, get somebody better. Like, how do they adjust their roster as you get ready for week one? Because there are some holes and there are a lot of unknowns.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm intrigued by Banjo too, because he's another young up and coming coach. You watch him at the podium, he looks like he could still play. He looks like a player. It's funny. But yeah, you mentioned the Morstead stuff. It was so funny. And look, I liked Morstead. He was a good Jet, but there was so many fans freaking out over a punter getting released in May. It was like the sky is falling. We released our punter in May. You gotta trust that that they see something in one of these younger guys. They want to get younger, all areas. That's clear. And yeah, you mentioned the Westhoff connection. That's a big deal. Banjo coming from that tree. That's the whole, even Peyton as well, New Orleans, Denver, all that stuff. So yeah, hopefully they can find some answers at those spots, find some answers at kick return, upon return, and just in general, special teams, even down to the gunners and defending and all that stuff is important.
Yeah, and that's part of rebuild. Like you got to when you go through a true reset, when you wipe out your entire staff and you get rid of a lot of bad contracts or like older players, this is the part of the process. And now it's a matter of making good decisions financially and with personnel. So, and then having the ability to adjust and own your mistake. Like, all right, we blew this one. Don't be arrogant about it and have your kicker lose you 3 games. Have the ability to take him out after one game. Like, all right, he's lost it now. He's going to cost us games. We've got to make a change here. But that's something that we won't know on June 16th. We'll know that come the season starts. Now, we looked at the roster. We talked about all the position groups, some strengths, some weaknesses. It's funny hearing Jet fans talk about the season. Some people don't give 2 shits. They're like, I don't care. We're not going to win a Super Bowl. I don't care. The last 2 years wiped out their enthusiasm, which I completely get it. But it's like, to me, I like the youth movement. I like the new energy brought. Now, the question is, how much can this new energy and this different kind of style coaching, how much can it change this team's fortunes for the year? Is it a team with the roster that we have that's a 4 or 5 win team that is well coached and kind of exceeds expectations, can win 7 or 8? Or is there a team that has talent to win 6, 7 games and then with some lucky breaks, 8 or 9 games? Like, I don't like, it just seems like when you talk about Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Sauce, Jermaine Johnson, like the Jets have it's not a rebuild where when Solomon Douglas inherited, a JV team. It's like there's legitimate in their eyes. They didn't help anything with their case, but there's legitimate talent here at crucial positions. Maybe you need more, but it should be enough to compete. Am I crazy, or do you think the same thing?
No, I totally agree. And we've said this a lot, but rebuilds do not last 4 or 5 years. Heck, they don't last 4. They shouldn't last 14 years. You look at the Commanders; they flipped it in 1 year. Lions, right? They had the one first year was rough, then they got better, had that 9-8 season, and then next year we're in the playoffs. Last year we're in the playoffs. Like, they flipped it around. We've talked about it all the time. That 2022 draft class, out of that top 5, the only team in that top 5 to not make the playoffs since is the Jets. I think that just shows you too how rebuild shouldn't last forever. And I totally agree. This should be a team that hopefully can compete and should compete. That should be the mindset. And I know it's all words, but Glenn has come in here and talked about wanting to win now and has talked about, believing that this team can win now. And I understand it's coaches speak. He's not going to stand up there and say this team stinks. We're only winning 3 games this year. But you go back and watch Saleh, mostly Saleh, when he took over, all they talked about was, it's an expansion roster. It's going to take time. There was no urgency. Exactly. All these excuses. There was no urgency. With Glenn, it feels like there's a little bit of urgency. With Glenn, it feels like, hey, he knows you've got talent on this team. You've got an all-pro cornerback. You've got an all-pro in Quinnen Williams. You've got one of the top 15, top 20 star at wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. You have a player in Breece Hall, if he's used right, can be a star. You hopefully have your 2 bookend tackles for the next 10 years in Armand Membu and Olu. And who knows? Maybe you stumble upon your quarterback, but this team has talent. Yeah, we talked about the linebackers as well. You have 2 studs at linebacker in Jamie Sherwood and Quincy Williams, one who's just on the rise in Sherwood.
Yep.
I think, I mean, my heart tells me 10 wins. I think you're probably looking at around 7 to 8 wins, with being December, right? You're in the hunt, right? When they show the graphics, the Jets are there. I just don't buy that they're going to win 4 games. I saw this article a couple weeks ago from ESPN, or was it ESPN? I don't know. Maybe it was ESPN. I don't know. They were like, the Jets are going to win 3-4 games. I don't know. I don't see that. Like,
dude. I get that a lot.
Yeah,
like I get in the comments on videos, they're like, bro, what do you like? Stop drinking you're trying to generate content for positivity. I'm like, no, I actually believe it. Like, I'm not saying 10 wins. I think they're not a 3-win team. They're not.
No.
Like, they won 3 teams. Something drastically went wrong. Like, drastically went wrong. Like, this coaching staff has some things to explain. But I think they're in that 5-6 range just based on talent and what they should do, and then get some breaks. They should be. And I think they can also start off slow. Like, the early schedule is brutal. I mean, I want to beat the shit out of Aaron Rodgers. I want to beat Rodgers and the Steelers. I'm not scared of them at all. That's a team where you buckle up and show your physicality as a team and show that what your mindset's really about. But, you start out with a rough schedule. But I think as you see this team get better, they get, there is a learning curve with your offense and defense. You got to learn your system on the fly as the season plays out. But if you can get through that early part of the schedule and then you get better and improve, towards the end, it can get interesting where you're in that 6, 7, 8 win range. And the AFC is tough and everything else, but you never know. It's like you talked about it. Every year it happens everywhere else.
Yeah.
Why can't the Jets finally get those lucky breaks? Instead of missing the kick, they make the kick. Instead of having a bad penalty, somebody else has a bad penalty. Like, it's like Parcells always talked about it. Like, NFL games often comes down to like 3 plays. Out of all the shit that happens, 3 plays define it. And it's like, for once in a while, maybe we get those breaks. So I'm not going in discouraged. I'm not going in defeated. And the thing is, if like Damon says here, I'm pushing for 8 wins. If the Jets win 8 wins, you know what that is? That's an improvement. Because we haven't been in 8 wins in forever. Like,
and 100%. And my official prediction, at least when the schedule came out, and this very well might change depending on how camp goes, but it was 7 and 10. And I totally agree. That's that range, that 7-8 win range. I think is realistic. And I'm glad you mentioned the schedule, because it might be a little bit. And I want to crush Rodgers as well. I want to first play. I want to just knock him over, but you look at the Lions back when Campbell first took over, they got off to an atrocious start that year, and they got better as the year went on, or the second year rather. They got off to the bad start and they finished 9-8. And then the next year they made the playoffs. I'm not saying the Jets are going to start off 1-6, 1-7. I don't think they'll start off like that, but you look at their schedule and it's all on paper, right? Every year you always look at the soft stretches in a schedule and the toughest stretches. And then as the year goes on, you come to find out that the tough stretches are really the easy ones. And like last year, remember, it was Denver, Minnesota. Those were the easy games. Oh, we got to face Darnold. That'll be easy. And next thing you know, we're down 17-0 in that London game. But, and Bo Nix comes in and beats us. So you never know. You never know what's going to happen. Injuries, all that stuff. But at least on paper, if the Jets can survive those first couple weeks and get out of it, let's say, who knows, go into the bye around that 4 and let's say, hope maybe 4-4 range ish, 3-5 range. Like, if they can go in there and hit that mark, the Lions in 2022 finished 8-2 to end the season and get to 9-8. I could see this Jets team making that late season run, get into the 7-8 wins, improving as the year goes on, and then 26 potentially set yourself up for that next level, that playoff team. But yeah, I mean, this team's not, and even just if Glenn is average, like, I think sometimes people forget how bad the coaching was last year. Even if Glenn is average, this team should be 2 wins better,
100%.
Right? Like you mentioned, 3-4 wins where they just beat a team, right? They're just better. 2 wins where maybe they get a little lucky, and then maybe a game or so where they outcoach another team. And boom, you get your 7 or 8. Like, the Jets last year couldn't outcoach anybody. And they just couldn't, right? It was incompetent. Even if Glenn's average, that's an upgrade, a big upgrade, because it was so bad last year. So I'm excited, dude. Like, I'm excited to see how it all plays out. Like, it's a young, interesting team, some questions, but I think the most important thing, you touched on this when we first started this, you want to see the team compete week in, week out, come out prepared. And I think as Jet fans, we know poorly coached teams when we see one, because we've seen so many poorly coached teams going back forever. Gase, Saleh, all these guys.
So now it's like if they come out and do stupid things and they do things that we're like, all right, they're not making adjustments, they're coming out flat. This, like, you'll know, like, all right, well, this has not changed. This is what we've always known. This culture hasn't changed. But if they're competitive week in and week out and they lose to a better team, okay, well, you know what? This is your retooling year, you're rebuilding. You're not accepting loss or justifying them. But if you get, all right, you get 6-7 wins, then next year we all expect that jump. Like next year, you're competing for a playoff spot. Like you said, there's no more 4-year rebuilds in the NFL. Like there's too much talent to suck for a long period of time. And a lot of talent's going to get paid too. They're going to pay Garrett. They're going to pay Sauce. These guys are all getting paid. They're going to be here. Now you got to win with them. So this year is like you're make that move, like you're climbing the steps. The next year, a much bigger step up. But I'm not wiping the season out. Like the people are like, I get messages all the time, bro. They're tanking. They're going to suck. Season, like I'm just not seeing it, dude. I just think that there's, and that could be blind faith in Aaron Glenn and the staff. It could be a lot of things, but there's enough to be competitive and win some games here. I honestly think.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe being too optimistic, but I'm
being negative, dude.
Yeah,
could you imagine like going into the season like right now, like bro, we have no Shat, everything sucks, and we're like, I can't do that in June. Like, I can't go into like training camp like we're gonna blow all year. I just can't.
Yeah,
it's boring.
Yeah, and again, I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't think this team will make the playoffs, but it's not crazy for them to be competitive. And like you mentioned, it depends on how these games are going. Like how many times, right, under Saleh, we've talked about it a little bit today, where they came out just flat. Like if they're coming out strong in these games, and they have that game in Cincinnati right before the bye. That's a tough place to play. It's a tough game. Burrow, like if they go toe to toe with Cincinnati and lose, I don't see how you can come out of that. Like, that's a positive step if you're close with some of these really good teams. And maybe you beat one of these really good teams, so especially
if you're seeing Justin Fields come on as a quarterback, where you're like, all right, you're starting to see really good things that like the offense is going to take time. It just is. But it's like, if you start seeing Justin Fields start to take off, we'll be like, all right, this kid's getting into this offense, and we're seeing a lot of positive things on offense where early on it could be a little ugly, understandable. And then it starts playing, all right, maybe we have something here. And that's something to buy into too. So it's like, there's a lot of things that I'd rather take the approach where it's like, I'm looking for the positive and hopefully they do emerge, and then you capitalize on them, and then, hey, maybe something does work out of all this. And we have a fun season for the once, because the last couple of years have blown. They've been terrible. Yeah.
And it's also just the other little things too. You mentioned Fields, right? But is this team, if this team's not taking, like, not having those boneheaded penalties, can we stop seeing that? Like that would be a nice sight as well. Like if it's one thing, if this team goes out there, wins 6 games, but we're still seeing the boneheaded penalties, we're still seeing some of these bad blowouts and can't stop the run, can't tackle. That's a different story. But if you start to not see some of those things, that's where, you can win some games this year, be competitive, and actually have some positivity. Like you mentioned, a fun season. Like, we are. And hey, if history tells us, right, though, AFC title game after swinging and missing on a former Green Bay quarterback, if history is going to repeat itself here. So,
man, I'm excited. Like I said, it's again, losing competently would be an upgrade. Being competitive, I'm saying it's a team that, like, the one thing I always talk about is like a team that you can be proud of. Like for the last couple of years, like you don't want to wear your Jets gear because you're so disgusted with the shit you see week in and week out, and you're like, oh my god, here we go again, same old nonsense. And they self-destruct, they melt, they make excuses. Get rid of all that. If it's a hard, a blue collar team that's not about the headlines, not about t-shirt slogans, and just competes week in, week out, you got my vote. I'll go for the ride with you guys and support you and enjoy it. And that's what I'm hoping for, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And that's what it's been so far, right? It's just football, all business, none of this, right? None of these crazy trips, no holdouts, no all these, like you said, these slogans, that used car salesman that Saleh was. If you're just going in and week out and competing and going out there and playing hard, coming out on some of these on top, and you have guys playing for the front of the jersey, not the back of the jersey, because last year they all just quit on each other and it was all playing for, the name on the back. And as long as that stuff doesn't happen, you can get behind it. And also, too, like, I don't know. I mean, not saying this is going to mean that he's going to be great, but there is something about Glenn being a former player of this team. He mentioned it the other day. The Jets posted on their Twitter the quote of him, like something about just, this is the spot that he wants to be. There is something about he loves this team. He loves this organization. He wanted to come back. This was the job he wanted. He got this job. There's something about that. And if this team embodies that type of attitude, like you mentioned, easy to root for, and you can find some success that way. Would be a breath of fresh air from what we've seen.
Now, the only possible distraction could be is everything's fine now. Everybody went to mandatory minicamp. The attendance has been great. Now, Glenn and Muji have both said that they want to take care of the young players. Like, we want to keep good young talent in the building. And based on the way things are going, I think we're all assuming that Garrett and Sauce, or at least one of them, will get done before training camp or whatever else.
Yeah.
So, Sparks, you got me, bro. But that's the one thing it could be a catchy is if they're not done by training camp, where Sauce and Garrett both going in the training camp and nothing's been done.
Yeah.
Like, that's where it gets a little interesting, because like you can't be so outspoken. Like, no, we want our young talent to stay here. We want guys that are buying into the program. We want all this. They're all buying in. They're doing all the right things. You now know what their work ethic is, their film study is. You're seeing what these kind of players they are early on. Obviously, you don't see that. You haven't seen their, in the game yet. But if that doesn't happen, then it gets a little bit dicey going to the training camp.
Yeah, like you mentioned, that's probably the one thing that's still like hanging over them is the Sauce and Garrett extensions.
Yep.
It kind of feels like Quinnen 2 years ago, right? Especially right before Hard Knocks. You didn't want to get yourself into another Revis situation where that's a headline on Hard Knocks and all that stuff. Obviously, that won't be the case this year, but they were able to get that done with Quinnen. Just get it done. I've always thought that this 40-day period, they would get it done.
Me too.
I think they will. I hope that
it's too obvious.
Obviously do. Yeah. And it's just, you want to start off on the right note, and you're all about flying under the radar and stuff. Flying under the radar is just getting these extensions done, getting them out of the way, having everybody there for training camp and moving on. Not having this loom over your head, training camp, preseason. Right. So
it just makes sense and dollars and cents.
Yeah.
Dude. It's just, they have the cap space. They're team guys.
Yeah.
They're young. This team is so young, and those are the guys you can build around. And that's the way you keep, like, you watch all these teams that are staying good for a long period of time. They keep their own. You don't let them leave, especially guys like this. Like Bryce Huff leaves, we got pissed off. So what? Who cares? But now it's like, these are the kind of guys you got to keep in the building.
Yeah, 100%. They're just top tier talents at their position. And I mean, so many years you've let, young players go by. These two, of course, are a little bit different just because of the talent they possess, and even just the fan base and how much they're well liked around here as well.
Yep.
Yeah, don't hesitate. It's obvious. Just get the deals done.
So, Bubs, I thought we were going to do like 45 minutes. We did an hour and almost 15 minutes. Jesus Christ, what'd you do to me?
So love talking Jets.
So, well, first of all, thank you for your time, but tell everybody how they can find you, man, because you have your own channel. I was looking forward to this all day, dude, because you as a content creator has gotten so much better over the last couple of years. Like, some people in the chat are saying that. Remember when we used to call in, you were like, you'd be hesitant and you weren't be like confident in your takes. And now you just rattle off information like a pro, dude. So how can everybody find you?
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I always appreciate the kind words from you in the chat. Always a great time. Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Bubs on Sports. Just Jets content over there, daily or just about daily shows, but anything Jets news, rumors, roster, all that stuff, just discuss it all over there. During the season, we do game previews, game recaps, obviously. We'll, recap all the training camp stuff. Can't wait to get out there. Always enjoy training camp, one of my favorite time of years. So that we'll do my annual player preview series in July, where I'll do every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, take 2 players, 1 offense, 1 defense, and just kind of break down what to expect from them. So if you want more kind of roster evaluation, we'll be doing that as well. But yeah, just Bubs on Sports on YouTube. And yeah, appreciate everybody that checks it out.
What the Jet Press?
Oh, yeah, Jet Press as well. Weekly articles over there, sometimes 2 a week, depending on what's all happening. But yeah, articles on just anything, whether it's news, rumors, roster stuff. Just actually, articles should be up tomorrow, I would say, on the Jets and their tackling. Broke down some of the numbers on how bad they were last year and how much better they need to be, and just why I think it's so important that they'll be working on tackling. So that'll be up. And
you're doing that kind of detail. You actually give them like stats.
Yeah, the tackling was a big deal for me. It's just so frustrating watching a football game and the team can't tackle.
Oh,
That
you gotta
was
tell me.
that was something that once I heard that, that was one of the highlights to me of OTAs and minicamp. And it's something so small, like Glenn said, it's tackling sport, but this team's been so bad at tackling. They can save, in my opinion, save games in a way here, and just save, like, how many times they miss tackles on third downs and big third downs to not get off the field. Like, that's just so huge. So, and I do like to get into the analytics side. I'm trying to keep it balanced. You don't want to get too analytical, but you gotta, also take it from the eye test. So try and find the balance.
I agree.
But definitely coaching. That is true.
I try to find a balance too between anger and just commentary, because I don't give any stats at all.
Yeah. No, yeah, the stats is, it's, all the stats, if you look at the numbers, it could be a totally different story. I still think the eye test is the best from what you're seeing and just reacting. But, watching this team it's a lot of anger.
So what are you doing for the summer? Anything good?
Just hanging out. Nothing crazy. Probably play some golf. A lot of golf.
Are you a good golfer?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm like average.
Like, what's your handicap?
I'm usually 90. I usually do in the 90s.
Do you really?
So, yeah. Like mid 90s. I'm all right. It's like,
you're humble too.
Is it a 16 handicap? Maybe that's what it is. 14, whatever. Like mid 90s.
Modest right now. You're a ringer, man. You can tell you're one of those guys.
I just picked it up actually a couple years ago. I used to play obviously baseball, but golf. Picked it up and it's a lot of fun. It's nice and chill until you start playing bad, and then it's the worst thing ever. It's just like anything. So
this is true. Bubs is handicapped being a Jets fan. We all are.
Yeah.
Well, Bubs, again, thank you for your time. I will make sure I share it everywhere. Everybody that's listening to this on our podcast network, Bubs on Sports, check it out. And then Jet Press too. Jet Press used to hate me, by the way, because I used to make fun of the articles, but they've gotten a lot better. So check out the articles there. Yeah, they've gotten a lot better. They used to be really bad, dude.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I've joined July, I think, last year. I know it was so. But they got a couple guys over there. So
that's good. Bubs, have a good night. Thank everybody for joining me. It's like streaming's been tough, man. I got so many things going on right now. It's hard to get consistent on the week. And then it's like we're going into a terrible, quiet time of the NFL offseason where it's just like there's nothing going on now. So we'll be creative with things. So, Bubs, thank you. Thank everybody for joining us, and we'll talk to everybody next week.